Maggie Dent, thank you for coming all the way from Australia for us. It's such an honor and such a pleasure to have you here. Your books are so well known in Romania.
It's crazy, isn't it? That's why I'm really glad to be here.
And I am, besides that, the fact that I love your humor and the energy you bring to the room, I also love your knowledge and your information. So thank you for everything. I'm just going to start the other way around that I would normally start. And I'm going to start by asking you if you have a message for parents, for the community of Parented Fest, and for parents everywhere. What is one message you would send them, or you would like them to know?
Okay, so I think it's the stop striving for perfection, because you just can't do it. You cannot do it. And I think the pressure that is on, especially today's mums, is outrageous, and it's causing all sorts of mental load and burnout. So I just need you to keep reminding you that good enough is actually good enough, and that we know there's research saying now around 30 to 40% of the time, if we're good enough, our kids are going to be okay. And that, good enough combined with a genuine ability to strive to love our kids as unconditionally as possible, they are the two things that go together. It doesn't matter about the messy house. It doesn't matter that they didn't eat broccoli for dinner. It doesn't matter that they've melted down because you gave them the wrong cup. They're just being children, and children are children. They're not little adults. So lower the bar a little and lean into it with as much love and compassion as possible, because parenting's never been easy. I had 4 sons, I can tell you. It's never been easy.
I know, yeah. How is it to be a mother of four sons?
Oh my goodness. I think I was prepared for it, because as I was raised on a farm in the wheat belt in Western Australia, and there were 6 of us kids. And I had 3 brothers, but also my mum wasn't very maternal, so I hung out with my dad a lot, going around the sheep and in the truck. And then I kind of figured, if anyone has got a perfect sister above them, that spot's taken. And I had a perfect sister above me. So I figured out, okay, well, I might just try and be kind of dad's mate and be the girl who likes not wearing dresses.
Yeah.
So I fitted in. And then sadly, my mum delivered another son, which was a bit tricky. But so my childhood was really more in the company of, my dad and my brother. And so when I had the boys' land, I went, yes, I know this place. And I never wanted to actually have a girl. I know that sounds awful. I've now got 5 granddaughters, and they are different. But what I found early on was the judgment of other people, that there was like, oh, poor you. And when I had my 4th son, I had a lovely lady come up to me and said she'd lit candles in the Catholic Church for me. She felt so sorry for me. And my 8-year-old son said, Mummy, why are they saying that? So I guess that began me on a mission that said, both genders deserve to be respected and valued, and that we really need to look at some of the messaging that's deeply embedded in culture, so that we can raise boys who haven't been crushed in those first years of life with all the harshness and meanness, and so that one day they can become a man who's strong but with a big heart.
So you understand men and you understand boys. What would you say are the main differences between raising a girl and raising a boy?
Okay, so I think it's, remember, it's around 70% that are fairly atypical, so it's not all of them. I think if you are going to have a boy, or you haven't lived with a brother, there's some things that you'll notice immediately they jump off your lap, and that's the need for movement, physicality, unbelievable senses of doing crazy things that are really very impulsive and don't make any sense. And that was one of the things, it took me a while to recognize. They do like jumping on things, they like throwing things, and they like having fun. And sometimes their version of having fun isn't what aligns with mummies. And so a lot of the time we're doing, don't put that down, stop that. Okay, so the other things with you raising boys is they don't listen well,
Okay.
right? If they're not in that moment, they're not deliberately not trying to listen. And that's another one. When we grasp onto, girls can listen 3 rooms away.
Yeah.
And remember every word you said, but choose to also ignore you. Whereas a boy just often doesn't hear you because he's in that moment. I think that's really important. And the other one is they can't retain as much language as our girls. We now have neuroscience to show that there's a delay in the first 12 weeks of gestation for boys that delays their cognitive learning. So our boys aren't as sharp at birth. They aren't the same as 5 and 6-year-olds going to big school. And that's a really big thing because we keep treating it as one size fits all.
Do they need more support from
Absolutely. And they need a lot more of that coaching, particularly from mums, around what big feelings are and that it's okay for boys to cry rather than just be angry, which is more acceptable. So that emotional coaching, it's probably, I think, one of the best things that I kind of leave the world with, that there is a tenderness in boys and it still can be in our teenage boys if it's not crushed, but it often needs the tenderness from a mum early or a mother figure. And then our girls, gosh, it was funny. When my granddaughters arrived, I had one moment when one of them was 18 months of age, like, only just verbal. Yeah. And I saw her in deep thought, and I'd never seen any of my boys in deep thought. And then she'd waddled over to her daddy and asked for a biscuit or a cookie. And I thought, she has been weighing up in her mind which is the best option. And I thought, whoa, they are a bit different, because I'd forgotten about being a girl. And then those things that rolled on, I did a survey for my book on girlhood. And I asked, what are your biggest challenges and what are the amazing gifts that most girls have? So the challenges aren't a surprise. Have very big feelings. Yeah. And they're more unpredictable in how they may react in certain situations. So here's a really good example of, I've been to a couple of birthday parties for 3-year-old girls. And one day there was this massive meltdown and squeals, and the birthday girl was so angry. And it's because a little girl came to the party with the same sparkly shoes. She was devout. And yet not long after that, I went to another birthday party and there were squeals of delight because another little girl had turned up in the same shoes. And that's when I realized there is an unpredictability that can be really confusing, particularly for dads. Yeah. We're used to it. Yeah. Their memories are amazing. And the friendship dramas and the caring for other things, that can be a wonderful gift, but sometimes it can be a bit of a curse. Yeah. Because they might get to care for everyone else, but not themselves. And we know that their memory is amazing at remembering everything. So that means they remember the wonderful things. They also remember every mistake you made. And we had a moment where we accidentally tipped one of our granddaughters out at a park. It was a bit of a lump in the rock. And almost every time we went to that park for the following 4 years, she reminded us of how we tipped her out. So I think it was when I started to say, I'm a bit like a boy in so many of my ways, because but I am still a girl with big feelings who doesn't forget things. So I think both of them have some gifts and challenges. Yeah. Yeah, but I'm still really glad I was blessed with 4 boys, and I'm catching up with my 5 granddaughters.
You're a person who likes humor. What role do you think humor brings into parenting? And
Okay, so we actually know that a sense of humor is actually a protective factor in terms of resilience. Okay. So our capacity to take something really serious and lighten it means our nervous system can actually be less flooded with cortisol. Oh my God, that stuff. So we know that for science. We also know that classrooms and homes where there's more laughter and lightness, there's often less of the escalation of big feelings from all the kids. So we know that's important. But the big one, I think, is when we have a parent who's capable of taking a hot moment, right? We all have them. Everyone who's been a parent, even sometimes with grandparenting, if we can choose in the moment for ourselves not to lose our complete head, flip our head, and we can lighten up with something, we de-escalate the whole environment. And so that's why I think I keep reminding parents at times that, little ones particularly don't have a prefrontal lobe. They're not able to follow all your instructions. They can't remember. They don't have a concept of time. They're going to do things that really do your head in because you are really wanting compliance and things in order and tidy houses. If we could lighten up, seriously, and there's lots of different ways that I recommend doing that with our kids. But I know that what it does is lower the tension for parents. So one of the crazy things, because I've been around a long time, Diana, in Australia, is every now and then I'll run into a couple and they'll both want to give me a hug. And they've told me that when everything's going a bit ouchy, that instead of reacting, they don't get triggered as easily. They look at each other and go, what would Maggie do? Let's tiptoe out and we'll go and have a cup of tea, or we'll go and sit outside, or let's go into the bedroom, shut the door and eat some fruit and nut chocolate. Because they've worked it out that when everything's in chaos, that a parent that goes into chaos isn't going to make anything better, and that whatever they do, they regroup and then they can come back and be the parent.
I still need to learn that.
Yeah, no, it's not easy, especially when you try to put on a conference. But I do think sometimes we need to lighten up with our partners.
Yeah.
When we forget things or we get it wrong, I think it's that compassion, genuine compassion, that can come from lightening up a moment. And I think that I learnt that off my dad.
I love it that you talk also about how it is to be a grandparent. How can grandparents best support their children and their children's children?
Yeah. This is a really big one because, of course, our parents did the best they could with what they knew, with what was commonly accepted. And most of them in previous generations was very much about behaviourism, which said that if you don't punish children's bad behaviour, you won't be able to raise a child who will turn out okay, right? And the other part of it is we need to reward them when they do good stuff. So that is deeply embedded, right? Which means that quite often that involves smacks or shaming or shouting or sending away in a shameful way. And I mean, many of us hold those scars. I mean, I'm a child of the 50s and my mum was that sort of a mum. But what we now know is that as a grandparent, we know that the landscape has changed. The science of child development has changed. And so we know that those things don't teach our children to make better choices, that very few children are deliberately being naughty in the moment. They are struggling to cope with unmet needs. However, for the previous generation, if they just, without some more knowledge, they're going to see that as lax parenting or permissive parenting. Yeah. So I think my challenge, can you imagine being one of my daughter-in-laws? And when they suggested that to me, that it was a bit of an issue coming into the family, I had to reassure them that I believe in sharing our muck-up moments, even as older women. And I think that we all had them. But what used to happen was you kept that hidden, push it under the mat, don't share it. Now we would like them to say, look, I guarantee there are times I struggle with your husband, who's my son. I think that sort of a dialogue is a good way to open into. What we did then was this, but together we might work out what is the way that's more acceptable today, because we actually want connection. Interestingly enough, when I did the survey, from boys to men, which was raising our boys to manhood, I asked who was the most important figure in your life as a boy going through that time. And the first thing they said was their mum, because they still needed a safe base to land. but the next most important person in their life was a grandparent.
Oh, okay.
And it also came in with help me help my teen. So we know that grandparents can play this great role of just being this stable, predictable space while the turmoil happens. And also, well, in Australia, we know that there are an awful lot of grandparents who are doing childcare because it's too expensive or there's not enough spaces. And I think there's a sacredness that we need to recognise that I often still feel it's more evident in Europe than it is in Australia, and that is that culturally, you know, grandparents are always a part of a family. In Australia, there's a tendency to put them into a home. They don't tend to share houses as much. So we know that caring for an older person with compassion is going to help you be a more compassionate human. Okay. But I guess my challenge is, if we have that relationship with a very judgmental grandparent, we have the conversation as kindly and maturely as possible. However, if they're still insisting when they are with them for those sorts of things, then we need to let them know that they will be spending less time with their grandchildren, because we are the parent. We are able to choose who they spend more time with. And sometimes that is a reality that sometimes is the wake-up moment. Because
for last year's conference, I had a person come up to me and she said, "Do you have any speakers to teach grandparents?" And I said, "Well, that I didn't think of." What she told me, and she's a grandmother now, she always thought of helping, you know, the grandchild. So her focus, her relationship as a grandmother was grandchild. But then she realized actually it should be her own child, which is the parent, that should actually be the focus of her help. Because sometimes trying to help the grandchild, you put yourself in the position of a parent more than of a grandparent, and then you forget all the values and the priorities and the boundaries of the parent, which does it differently.
Oh, look, I totally agree with that. And one of the things we've noticed over the years is how many grandparents come along to be recalibrated, because exactly the same thing. They want to be supportive of the parents, and sometimes to be supportive of the parents, then I always talk about predictability. So when I end up in a home with my grandchildren, I follow exactly what my son and daughter-in-law have followed, whether it's the time they go to bed, the amount of stories, whatever they prefer to eat. I do the same thing, because what we know for children is predictability lowers stress. So the more predictable environment is, then the better it is for kids. The more likely they're going to be able to not get dysregulated, right? Even if it's, sometimes you think, oh, I think that's silly. But then we look at the side of spoiling, and when does spoiling get too much? Because we know that, excessive sugars, it can really impact children's behaviour, and it messes with their teeth. But some, and I think that's your space, have a conversation that says, how can I treat them in a special way that creates a unique grandparent relationship? And where is it that it's too much? And that's really, and sometimes it's the same with buying presents and gifts. I've come to the place that they've got lots of toys. I don't want to fill that toy room up anymore, so I find experiences, whether it's being a zookeeper at Taronga Park or Cirque du Soleil, or there's a musical coming, then that will be the gift. And I feel sometimes we need to have those conversations as well.
That's wonderful. Speaking of culture and the differences between Europe and Australia, you were born and raised in Australia. How do you find how society welcomes children in public spaces different in Australia and in Europe? Because personally, when we saw each other in Australia, I found a little bit of more of a freedom to be a parent, and with all that means to be a parent. So we were in, I don't remember where, but in one of the places, my kids were melting down on the floor, screaming. And there's this very nice lady coming up, and she says, "You know what? It's gonna get better. It's all, enjoy it as it is, because you'll miss it." And that just gave me the space to be the answer right there, right? Instead of the pressure which I feel a lot in our restaurants, in our places, in our society.
Yeah, I actually think we are a more relaxed culture in lots of ways. You know, that's what ocarism kind of is. And that's why we have this slightly irreverent way of often talking about things that probably we shouldn't speak so irreverently about. But I do feel, and even more so in rural communities, children are a part of everything, right? They're in everything. And I think where I see, you know, there's no question that children can be anywhere. And those moments, I mean, it's one of the things I keep saying in my seminars. Remember, when a child has a meltdown, that's not a naughty child. That child's struggling to cope. So focus on supporting the parent right then to stay as calm as they can. And that's what happened for you. Yeah. I see that happen a lot. I mean, I do it a lot. I think we've realized that, you know, those moments, those hot moments can absolutely happen anywhere at any time. And because I travel quite a bit, it's interesting that I've noticed when I'm on a plane and there's a little toddler in the one before, so often I play peekaboo or, you know, hide and seek or whatever. And I've seen other parents do it on planes with children. And I feel that is a cultural side that says, look, let's help the parents out here. This is a 4.5-hour flight.
Yes, let's help everyone.
And I feel we know that, you know, a lot of our restaurants have, you know, kids packs, colouring in things for them, you know, and I find many of the restaurants that have got garden areas have got spaces for children to run in and out where they can't run on a road. And I know a lot of the wineries that are most popular have really good play areas. So we've worked out that if we want the parents to come and eat,
they need to serve the child as well.
Look after the child so they can eat. I think that's, I'm really proud of that cultural shift. It wasn't always there, but it's definitely there now, especially as we've changed our attitude around play back to a more holistic, nature-based, risky play space. It's very exciting.
I'm so glad that you say that. I hope we're catching up on that because I make space for my kids at the restaurants. I you know, doing what I do, and I start to become a kind of, you know, I'm okay with the stares and the glares, and I so often I hear people talking, oh, we had kids too, but they never, you know, did this or did that. And I've toughened up, but it still gets to me sometimes.
Oh, look, judgment. Oh my goodness. And I think one of the saddest places, I often talk about the pressure on today's mums, because it's like, it still is 98% of mums is the one that's running the home because you need to do it with a phone. But what I've noticed is that, you know, the instant compare despair behaviour of us as women and girls, that's what happens on kind of Instagram and places like that. We see people who look like they are doing the perfect job, right? And we immediately attack ourselves. So our harshest judge is ourselves, right? And I hear that a lot. I keep saying to parents, and recently ran a couple of women's retreats with Dr. Vanessa Lapointe, and we got them to write on Post-it notes the thoughts they told themselves that were just had me in tears. So that harsh judgment, but then online, the judgment's there all the time. People pile on, you know, without the compassion I would like to think we would say in someone's. So I feel the world has got harsher and more judgmental, and then we've lost the village of a supportive circle of humans, whether it's who you had your babies with, your babies group, or whether you've got friends in the neighbourhood or you've got extended family. That's disintegrated a bit. They're the people who would keep on saying, who would turn up with a coffee, who wouldn't care if you hadn't done your hair when you turned up to playgroup, who would just turn up with a cooked meal from time to time. That's disintegrated. So I feel it's even harder today. But the judgment layer, it really is. It's really, really strong. So I still believe it's about 50-50 when we're in the real world, but it's way more of it online and then when we judge ourselves.
You have a new book that just came out about adolescence, right? So what I believe, I'm not there yet. So. It's possibly just like toddlerhood, one of the most misunderstood time periods of our kids. What is one thing that parents most often misunderstand about the adolescent in their house?
Well, I think you're exactly right. I find adolescence is really toddlerhood on steroids. Exactly the same development, but with tons more hormones and bigger humans. It is a major time of transformation, and the transformation isn't just physical. And, you know, I've explored it in so many levels and so many ways, but it's cognitive, it's emotional, it's hormonal, it's biological, and then, of course, it's physical. So any time that there's a change that occurs without awareness, it will trigger stress. So it is the most confusing and stressful period of life. And what's also happening at the same time is they're evolving these biological drives, which says, who am I? I am needing more choices, more autonomy. And I'm also biologically wired to need to hang out more with my own age group. And there's a reason for that. And so sometimes that need for connection can be a positive and a negative. If they haven't got positive friends who help support them, it can do the opposite. And then one of the biggest shifts I want to talk about is that in the cognitive development, that up to 16, the brain's not as fully developed. Well, we know girls go in 2 years earlier. They are much more cognitively capable, which is why we lose some of our boys with poor choices in that window. But really what's also happening is the brain is pruning the bits it's not using as a child to make it more like an adult brain. At the same time, it's adding more dendrites, which means you can learn really fast, which is really important. And it's a potential window of exciting things. So if you'll know you can pick up a musical instrument at 14, learn a language, you know, and if you throw your energy into your hobby or your sport, you will improve drastically, which is super exciting, right? But it's the same window that anything they do that's not healthy has a much bigger chance of becoming a problem and possibly an addiction, whether that's vaping, watching pornography, social media, you name it, drinking, all of those things. And that's why, you know, our challenge is we have to be rails on the bridge to protect our kids as much as possible while still allowing them the freedom to make mistakes. So I wrote Help Me Help My Team, which is the adolescent book, which is a different name, of course, in Romanian.
Ajută-mă, nu-mi înțeleg adolescentul.
I could not pronounce that because what I recognized, I thought I'd finished writing, but I went back to where I started from as a high school teacher and a counsellor. We need parents to know there are things that you can do when big moments happen rather than panic. We don't have enough counsellors in Australia or psychs or youth workers to help our kids. And so we've got an epidemic of anxiety, we've got loneliness really impacting our kids, we've got heightened rates of, you know, body dysmorphia and eating disorders, you name it, it's all happening. And we need to know what can you do in those moments. So I decided to write lots of scripts so that you can come alongside your team, because one of the things we found is that when your team does something that is potentially risky, whether it's drive a car they're not licensed to, or have a vape in their bag, or you're not sure if they're just moody or are they depressed, your first tendency is to be angry. And of course, what does anger do? It pushes and creates distance. So I have a 9-step process that really, the first one is go find your calm. You know, go do whatever you can. Do not tackle it right now. 2 o'clock in the morning is the worst time, right? And then when you've found that, go and get yourself better informed about what the issue is. Don't just come in with what you know, because today's parents can't be the font of all knowledge. Many of our kids actually can know more, but also they may have the incorrect information. So I've created a space in a digital world where you can go and find out where is the best information. So you get that information. And then you've got to work out, we need to have a chat, right? Where's a good time for you? How can we turn up in a calm, compassionate way and be really curious? And then our biggest job, which is the hardest things for parents to realise, it's not our job to rescue them. When we come in and fix it and rescue them, they don't learn how to deal with hard things. And that is that is one of the hardest and probably most common misperceptions, is I'm going to go in and fix that. I'll go in and fix that up and pay for that and do that. They haven't learnt. Our job is to stand beside and go, so what's your plan? How can I support you? And the big one at the end of all that is no matter what happens, no matter what poor choice you make, we've got your back. We love you.
It's wonderful. Thank you so much for your words of wisdom, for your work, for everything that you do for us.
Thank
I
you.
cannot wait to hear you up on the stage.
I know, I'm a bit excited. Thank you for inviting me. To all the attendees at this fabulous conference, I just want to remind you all that raising little ones and bigger ones has never been easy. But when we do it collectively with other like-minded people who genuinely care about children, we can create what I call little tribes or mini villages, because we need those around us to share in the raising of our children. Remember, there is no perfect. There has never been a perfect, but good enough. Yep, good enough, even though those moments that things happen that make you want to pull your hair out, good enough is all you need to be around 30 to 40% of the time. And your biggest number one thing, connection. Love and connection. Always land on that and your kids are going to be okay. So thank you for having me in Romania.